Hey everybody, Randy Patterson here with Boomerocity. It's always a treat when I've developed a friendship with people over the years of doing this work, and now in my 15th year, and being able to have a rapport and being able to just chat. And what you're about to see here is an interview that I did with my good friend Carla Olson. I want to refresh your memory if you haven't seen any of my other interviews or read them back before I started doing Zoom. As to how I came across the talent known as Carla Olson. I was trying to find a live version of the Rolling Stones song Winter. And I was looking on YouTube and I come across this video of this work, and it had Mick Taylor on there and this woman that I'd never heard of before by the name of Carla Olson. And I listened to it and I fell in love with it immediately. And then I saw that they also did another song called Sway, another Stone song, and I was hooked. I was hooked for good. And it wasn't for another year or two, I can't remember now, that I was able to interview Carla for the first time. We became hard and fast friends right away, and with her amazing husband Saul Davis, and I just always it's always a special treat for me to be able to talk with Carla. So you'll see that when you're watching this video and listening in on it, depending on which platform you're accessing this interview with. And this time we talked about her new album, Have Harmony Will Travel, #3. And there's obviously two other ones to this trilogy here. And it's a great album, a lot of great covers. And on this one, she does another great Stone song called Can't Always Get What You Want. You know that one. So we talk a lot. We talk about the late Gordon Lightfoot, all sorts of people, all sorts of songs, all sorts of history. And Carla has it all. And she is such a great talent and a fine friend, like I've said. So without any further ado, here is my latest interview with Carla Olson. And as always, I want to remind you, if you don't mind, please like this interview with whatever platform you're accessing it to. Please subscribe. It won't cost you anything extra to do that. And share it with your friends. All of that's the lifeblood of podcasts and VCasts like these. And we just need your support. And Boomerocity is no exception. So we appreciate that. So again, here's my latest interview with my good friend, Carla Olson. Take care.
Hey.
Long time no see.
Not that long, but a
Well,
while.
not that
Yeah.
long, but
Yeah.
among friends, it's always too long when we haven't seen each other for a while.
Well, at least we're supposedly post-COVID, so we're good there. We're good
Yeah,
there.
what are you seeing out your way?
A little bit of masks, and I still have a host of mask filters and amoeba masks. I always, wear my regular store mask when I can.
Yeah, yeah,
And it's when it's crowded, we put them on.
yeah.
Anywhere you go when it's crowded, because you just don't know, and what you don't know, you can't tell. So,
That's true.
how
That's
about
true.
you?
Well, out here, I mean, I see the occasional mask, but
Mhm.
live music is alive and kicking, and
Yeah,
concerts are very well attended, and people are happy. So and it really, even here in Tennessee, it varies. Here where I'm at, in the eastern end of the state, up in the Smokies, even during the height of the pandemic, we
I
had
know.
the I'm told the biggest crowds ever as far as visitors for a year, which go figure, right?
Yeah,
But
well,
you go over down to Chattanooga, big music town, you see a lot more mask. You go to Nashville, it just depends. I remember right after the pandemic or the shutdown lifted and concerts started happening, first
mhm.
concert I went to was Eric Clapton and Jimmy Vaughn. Nobody in all of Bridgestone Arena that I could see were wearing masks.
I think
So
I talked to you right about that time. That was
yeah,
when I
yeah,
talked to
you're
you.
right. You're
Yeah,
right. We
yeah,
did.
exactly.
And so I repeat myself like an old person. So
Yeah. That's well, you know what? That's security.
there you go. There you go.
Repeating ourselves is security.
Repetition is the best teacher, right?
That's it for
But
sure. That's it.
but
So
yeah, I mean, even more so, we're seeing much more activity. We're seeing much more. People are feeling freer, but as news perks up some about certain outburst of
mhm.
of COVID cases. I noticed that when the media talks it up, I see more masks, but it's not.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the exception instead of the rule. So
Well, we're glad that people are still making music because that's what I'm doing, and it's hard. It gets harder and harder to provide it to people, but some ways. I mean, I guess the digital world is helpful to a lot of the generation before me and before that. But us old folks, we want to have CDs, and we still have CDs in our old cars. Which
that's
we keep
right.
an old car to make sure we have a CD player in it. Uh, yeah, I mean that's where I listen to mixes when I'm trying to tell what's reality. So, but yeah, we're still in there. We're in the game. I got 3 new albums this year that two I produced, and well, actually, including the Stephen McCarthy and Carla Olson album, is 4 albums actually. So it's a real world for us. Music is what we thrive on, and we hope others still enjoy it. So
Well, you've done I mean, it's amazing to me how prolific you've been on your output of music and the quality of it. It's
thank you. Well,
usually when you see a lot, in numbers, you see a decrease in quality. And I won't even mention any names, but I noticed that.
you
Yeah,
don't have to.
yeah, but it's kind of like really, yeah, I'm an Elvis fan, but all those soundtracks, all those crappy movies, it didn't help him any. Although I just read how much he sold and all that. So what do I know? But anyway,
Did you get that double one though? The double one with all the deep cuts. It was like there was some really cool old stuff, and then things with just rehearsals in the studio. Yeah, it was really good. I mean, I love Elvis. I just I can never hardly get enough of Elvis.
well, there's a book coming out, and I'm going to be interviewing. And none of this is on my list of questions, but
Sorry, I'm digressing
you
too.
and I get like this though when we get together. We just start talking, don't we? We need to
Yeah.
bring Saul in so we can really get this going. But there's a book that's coming out this month, any day now, is written by Colonel Parker's protege, Greg McDonald,
Mhm.
and he clears up some stuff about the Colonel. And I don't know if you remember, but I say that the Colonel was my first celebrity interview. I met him at my first concert, which was Elvis in 1973. I was 13 years old,
Oh,
and just as luck in Providence would have it, I bump into the Colonel because I got to the show 2 hours early, and
yeah.
so I asked him 3 or 4 questions. And the last one was, "Can I meet Elvis?" And he said no and walked off. So, but anyway, this book, they gave me an advance copy of it, and he clears up some stuff. There's 1 or 2 very interesting bits of news that I'd not heard before that's in the book, and I don't want to ruin it for them because they want to
Yeah.
sell books just like we want to sell records. And so,
Yeah.
anyway, I'd encourage you to get it. It's Elvis and the Colonel by Greg McDonald and Marshall Merrill, who has written a lot of books, including co-writing books with the late Ken Mansfield about the Beatles and the rooftop concerts and all that
Right.
kind of stuff. Ken
Uh-huh.
died a year ago this month, but Marshall's a great guy, friend of mine, and I'd encourage you to pick up those books as well.
I'll do it. I'm a book. We're book people. Saul has books eating us out of house and home here, and I'm the same way. But
Well,
he reads faster than I do.
well, if I turned off this virtual background here, you would see bookcases full of
Oh,
books.
I know, but I like it, and I got to take a photo of it before you don't.
Hey, I'll
Don't
send it
forget.
to you. You can have it. So I'll send it to you, and you can use it for your backdrop if you
I
want.
tell you what, I'll let you have my Gene Clark and Carla Olson draw paintings from Tower Records from 1987 that somebody gave me that are in the behind our bookcases that have CDs in them in the living room. And you see Gene's silhouette every time you walk into the living room. You
Oh
see
my
Gene's
goodness.
silhouette. For years we had Gene's face there, and then I said, "Saul, you got to turn it around. I can't walk into the house, into the living room every day and see Gene Clark as big, like 6 feet high." Somebody will get that one of these days when I'm gone.
I
So
love it. Put me in the drawing
I'll
for
put
that
you in the
one.
list. I'll put you on the list.
Well, if you saw the rest of my office here, you would see 4 paintings by Michael Cheval.
Oh,
and his last name is spelled Cheval, and he does some album artwork for, I forget, one of the metal bands. I forget which one, but his art genre is called absurdity, and
okay.
it's almost always music themed. And he gave me, after my last interview with him, he gave me the last. He always does numbered prints, and he gave me the last one of the one called Stairway to Heaven.
Oh,
And it's very, very cool. I'll snap a picture of it and send it to you.
do that. I'd like to see it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've got one with Lennon, and I got, actually, let me see here. Yeah, I have two with Lennon, and one of them's in Strawberry Fields in Central Park. And
Oh,
so it's some cool stuff. I'll snap the pictures and send them to you and Saul, and you
I
can see what
love
I'm
it.
talking about. But Michael's a great guy, Russian immigrant, loves rock and roll. So
Yeah.
he's a good guy. But hey,
Well,
about your album, I love
yes.
it. I love it. Tell me the
What?
backstory on it.
I'm so glad. Well, it was a long time coming because the last one I did of this series was in 2020,
Mhm.
and that was it came out about three or 4 days after lockdown from COVID. So it didn't get really didn't get out there very well. We couldn't actually support it. We couldn't do any shows or anything like that, and it was. I mean, there were some really cool things on it. I mean, I would say that this one we spent more time recording
Mhm.
because we had the time, we had to record, and we also had to be careful recording because of COVID. So we had to be in a big studio, which I went to Robbie Krieger's studio, Robbie
Oh,
Krieger from the Doors.
yeah,
He has a
yeah.
very large room,
I've heard.
tracking room in Glendale, and a couple of really cool ISO booths so people would feel safe. And we cut this record, we cut about, let's see, one, two, three, four, five of these tracks with the band with the drums and all that stuff. Had to be in this room. We used Robbie's drums too on some of the
Oh,
stuff.
wow, cool.
Yeah, yeah. The Broken Home song, the one in Another Land, that was cut with the original bassist from Broken Homes, Jimmy Ashurst, who also played with Izzy Stradlin and
Guns N'
I
Roses.
can't think of that other band. Buck Cherry. He was in Buck
Yeah,
Cherry,
yeah, yeah.
and we invited him to play on it and wanted to do it as a tribute to Michael Dolman, who had passed away. He was the singer of that band. They
Mhm.
were a great band. Anyway, we cut that in that big studio with B3 and real B3 and the whole deal. So it was really great. We had a great time, and the tracking room is huge, and the ISO rooms were real. I mean, we just got it done. There were live tracks, not much overdubs at all. So,
Yeah,
and I love recording like that. I think that's the best way. If you're going to do big rock and roll, it should be for real. You
yeah.
know, none of this nitpicking this lick and that lick, and
Splitting hairs and dissecting, right? It's
Well, I like to say, play it for real. Play it
yeah.
like you mean it. So,
Well, you pull. I noticed. I'm looking at the list here, and there are just. I'm just stunned by the names. I'm intrigued by the. You did that old Western song called "Cool Water," and you've got the late B.J. Thomas in there. And tell me about that. His wife Gloria is a. We don't really know each other. We're Facebook
yeah,
friends, and we exchange notes
right.
every once in a while. And BJ was one of my first interviews years ago when I launched Boomerocity. So I was intrigued about that. Tell me about that.
Okay, well, first of all, that album, the Gunfighter Ballads album, which is where I heard Cool Water for the first time, was my mother's favorite album. Not only did she like the sound of the album, the songs on the album, she kind of liked Marty Robbins too, because he looked pretty cool on the cover, with the black cowboy outfit with the flat hat, and
The
I
bad
mean,
boy image there.
it
So,
was just, and we used to play that on the hi-fi, and we
oh,
had a Fisher hi-fi,
mhm,
and mom was the one that sort of turned me on to that and the song El Paso, and
mhm,
uh, a whole bunch of the Marty Robbins stuff was played in our house. So when I met BJ the first time, I was with Saul Davis, my manager at the time. I think probably I met him before. Uh, I mean, probably in the 80s at some point. And we were walking down Sunset, and or up Sunset rather, that way. And he was going into the Source, which was a natural food place on the corner of the one of the side streets there. It's not there. It's only just been knocked down recently for a high-rise building. And that was where you could get natural food and vegan stuff. And, it was kind of a cool place. It was kind of a place probably in the 60s and 70s where people would hang out if they wanted to show everybody that they were trying to be healthy. But meanwhile, they were taking all kinds of dope on the side.
Right.
But BJ was walking down the sidewalk and saw, and I just stopped him and said, God, BJ, could we want to record something with you? And he just kind of looks at Saul and I'm like, what the hell? But he recognized my accent and he said,
Texas
where,
boy. Yeah.
well, and he's Houston, as they say, Houston down there.
Yeah.
And I'm from Austin, which is
Right.
160 miles apart, but close as you could get.
Yeah.
And he said, where are you from? And I said, I'm from Austin. And he went, oh, yeah, I play in Austin all the time. And I said, yeah, I said, I know you do. And I said, I'm just such a big fan. And we just started going to his shows all the time. And he would invite us to show. He'd come to town and he'd invite us to be his guests at, usually he was playing the couple of Western venues. They're not there anymore, but not the Palomino, but there were other places down in Orange County he would play. We would go see him play. And we kind of got to the point where we would fly to Vegas when he was there. And he would invite as his guest, and he would invite us to have a nice booth right dead center of where the stage. I remember we were in the Desert Inn one time, and he says he knew one of my favorite songs was Eyes of a New York Woman. And he said something like, okay, I'm going to do Eyes of a New York Woman. And Carla, I know you know the words, sing along. And I was like, oh my God, here, BJ, don't say that to me. And it was just, first of all, and second of all, is that I think that there are two voices that you would hear in what I would call soul, rock and roll, pop music from the 60s. You would never think it was anybody else but them. One of them is Percy Sledge.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever sounded like Percy Sledge ever, except maybe Robin Gibb slightly.
Maybe.
I can tell you about that too. But BJ Thomas, nobody would go, well, that's not, I mean, who's that? No, the minute you hear BJ's voice, you know it's BJ.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me is the true value of someone's voice, is that it's completely and totally unique.
Yeah.
And we were working on a project with that was a charity organization that Matt Damon started called water.org. It didn't get too far because Matt Damon is a very busy actor at the time. And this came out where I guess maybe, I don't know, too many years ago for me to talk about. But he said, Saul presented him with this idea that we would record stuff for the internet when it was new and internet radio was new. And if you downloaded it, the money would go, except for whatever cost you have, and maintenance cost, would go to the charity. And we were going to do we actually did film a PSA for that, a public service announcement, with some people that were that we knew that were movie stars and a couple of musicians. Mm-hmm. And BJ was coming to town and he was doing a TV show with PBS that Saul set him up with. It was a story. It was a show called Rock and Roll Stories. That was on in the I'd say probably early 2000s, something like that. And BJ was coming to town to do an hour-long show and sing and play and talk about his songs with a host that was kind of, like you and me, we're kind of like record nuts and, music nuts. And I said, well, we're going to, if you're going to be in town, do you want to just come in and record a song for this charity? And he says, I'd love to. So we picked the song and he says, I'd love to do Cool Water. I've always wanted to do that. He says, I don't really want to do a country version though. And I said, no, you do what you want to do. You're going to go in, I'll bring you a backup band and we'll go in and we'll cut it in the afternoon and you could cut the vocal and then you're out of town. So that's what we did. And the song was, it was the band that was on it was a lot of the musicians I used for this album or the rest of the tracks in this album. Pat Robinson passed away sadly in 2014. The piano, the guy that played piano, with, he was a musician that was one of those songwriters. He had songs covered by Joe Cocker and all sorts of other people. Anyway, he passed away, but everybody else is around. Mike Thompson played piano on that. Don Henley, the Eagles keyboard player, he was on that.
Uh-huh.
And the track came out great, and BJ's vocal came out great. We had to pass it back by him a couple of times to make sure he was happy with it. And this was obviously before he got ill.
Mm-hmm.
And then we were planning on putting it on this record anyway. And then when he passed away, we went back to Gloria and we said, do you feel okay about this? And she said that was fine for her. And she said that it might be the last thing that BJ had recorded. So,
Wow.
but he was a wonderful, wonderful guy. And just one of those people that he was just never got uppity. He never got his head too big. I mean, we're performers.
We have
We're
our
all
moments,
weird,
but he was level. Yeah.
he was totally level. Yeah. Yeah. So,
Well, when I interviewed him, I reached out to him. I was living in the Dallas area at the time. Of course, he and Gloria were living in Arlington.
Arlington, right.
And
Yeah.
I reached out to him. It was a phone call. It was way before I started putting my ugly mug on Zoom. But
Mhm.
we were talking because, for a while, I don't recall if I've ever told you this, but I used to be very involved in contemporary Christian music. I worked in a bookstore and I did a little bit of concert promotion and
Mhm.
things like that with some of the artists. And of course, I kept up with all the various artists, and he was like the first big crossover into CCM, before Bob Dylan, before some of the others. And,
Right.
but
With Mighty Clouds of Joy, was it the Mighty Clouds of Joy stuff and the stuff on
Yeah.
word music?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and he had his book that he and Gloria put out and that kind of thing. But what I felt bad about, Carla, was that he just had the crap beat out of him by the Christian press, and I use that so lightly. But it's just like, we have this nasty habit, us Christians, thinking that just because you sing Christian songs, you got to be a theologian. And even if you were, you wouldn't be the right one to a third of the crowd. So, I just,
I know.
let the guy sing,
Yeah.
it's great. Let him sing. Let's not beat him up, and,
Yeah.
but he was so gracious to me. I haven't listened to that audio since I transcribed it. I want to go back. I just can't bring myself to go back and listen
Yeah.
to it. And there's several I've interviewed who have passed since I've interviewed them.
Yeah.
And he's one of those. I mean, Gary Wright recently, of course, and all
Yeah.
that. So I could get on and on all that kind of stuff.
Well,
So
that's how I am about Gene Clark. For the first, I don't know, 5, 6, 7 years after he passed away, I couldn't play him in the car.
yeah,
It was just too close. His
Yeah,
voice was
you
too
guys were
in my
close.
head and too
Yeah.
surrounding me, and Saul felt the same way. It took us years before we could actually play stuff where we didn't start bawling. It's just
yeah, I
one of
can
those things. But
imagine.
I know what you mean about BJ. BJ also was just he was a human being. You can't. This is why people love artists and singers and musicians, because uh, of the faults and the human aspect of our lives, and what we. I mean, we all try to be as good as we can to people. Not everybody, but certainly I know most of the people that I associate with are good people.
Yeah,
You know,
no, I
so
agree.
yeah.
What you've done, I'm ironically, I'm still looking at your song list here of the album,
Okay,
and
okay.
and
I'm
I'm
looking at it
approaching.
too. I have to remember because I got all these records out. I have to, put my glasses back on here.
I've I have to laugh because I see on here you've got Street Fighting Man, and you know I laugh because that's how I learned about you, is you and Mick Taylor's cover of Sway
Right.
and Winter. And I found you because of Winter. If you remember that conversation you and I had, that's
Yeah.
how I learned about you. And I love your cover on it. And I was blown away that you actually had Mick Taylor on there with you. But here you are with another great album, and you're doing another Stones cover. Tell me about that song.
That's my favorite Rolling Stones song. Always has been. I mean, maybe when I was really, really young, 12, 13, 14, 15. There were other songs like Ruby Tuesday
Mhm.
or some of the 19 Nervous Breakdown was always a favorite. I always loved that one. But I tell you, when I heard Street Fighting Man, uh, the sound of it, the record, not my recording, the stone sound of it
Right.
was so big. Yet then I read more about it and I found out it was recorded in a little tiny tape player.
Yeah.
And I'm going, how did you guys do that? So I got intrigued with the process of how you make records sound big without, like when we go to the studio, a lot of times guys will bring the littlest amp they can bring and they'll turn it up to 11, just
Get
to
that
get that.
good dirty sound.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. And I got fascinated by the sound of it, and I always just loved the energy that that song has as a musical energy. Lyrically, obviously, it's controversial, but I love the energy that the band was showing at that point. And I always wanted. I actually played that in a couple of cover bands that I was in back in the '70s when I was doing that, trying to get my chops together. And I had a band with a couple of different top 40 type. They weren't top 40, but we were playing cover songs because we wanted to get booked and make some dough and that kind
Yeah.
of stuff. And I did play in a band with four guys that we did nothing before 1970. And this was in 1974. So we were really like not on the cutting edge. It's that we were
Big
on the
library
retro
there,
edge.
right?
Yeah, we were on the retro edge. So and the other Rolling Stone song that's my favorite was Wild Horses, and I had cut
Mhm.
that with my buddy Todd Wolf. We had cut that on the Hidden Hill sessions way back in 2019.
Mhm.
So I got one of them done, and then I thought, well, I got to do this other one. And I got together with Jonathan Lay, who's he's a musician
I know Jonathan. We're Facebook friends
Jonathan.
and exchange notes. I need to talk
Yeah.
to him sometime.
And he's got a band called the Jigsaw Scene, which is kind of just a really cool rock and roll type. It's what I call kind of edgy rock and roll. But he also played with for many many years with Dave Davies. He was Dave's second guitar player.
Mhm.
And they toured together quite a bit. And he's kind of got the '60s thing. He knows how to get those sounds and stuff and make it sound, but bring it up to date, make it sound contemporary. So
Right.
we cut the track, and Ben LaCourte, who's also on I Can See for Miles, which we talked about last year. Remember, I had that
Right. Yep.
single out.
And
That's on
it's
here
on
as
this
well.
album. Yep.
French drummer Ben LaCourte, who is he's my go-to guy. If he's around, man, I'm going to use him because he does his homework. He's really great.
Mhm.
And then the person that's from Icy Hawks, a bass player, Paul Marshall, has been playing off and on with almost all my recordings because he's here. He's the musical director. We put it all together, and he's extremely talented bass player. So that's kind of what we did. And then Skip Edwards, who played with Chris Hillman and with keyboard player for Lucinda Williams for years. And then he also, believe it or not, he played with Johnny Rivers for years.
Wow. Yeah.
And Skippy, he was on So Rebellious and Lover. He played the piano on Hot Burrito that Gene Clark and I did, and a couple other songs. Skip's on B3 on that, and the piano, and he just, I mean, when that comes in, that piano, boom, 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 and the drums come in, it's the piano is what kind of makes that between I'm playing in open G tuning, so I'm really trying to get the key thing happening, and it just, it was fun to do. Just, you got to have fun with this stuff, and if it's not fun, you need to be doing something else.
How was this album different for you to put together than all your others? I mean, I see some of this because you've reached back some, you dusted off the BJ stuff or the story of it, not some
Right.
the recording, but what, how was this different in other ways on this album versus the others?
Well, this kind of goes back to Saul, my manager and husband of 38 years. We've been together. He's been managing me for I didn't want to tell you, most of my life.
Do
He
you
had
think
decided,
do you think it's going to work out?
I think that he doesn't cook, so
Oh, well, get rid of him.
he's definitely in for the long haul because it was his idea to do guitars, which I had wanted to do this since I moved to LA in the late 70s. I had left behind some friends, great guitar players, Eric Johnson.
Mm, yeah.
Jake wasn't even, he was not even in the picture at that point. Jake Andrews, he was too young. But I had some other friends, Jesse Taylor, who used to play, Joe Even was one of them, that I wanted to do an album of guitar players that I produced.
Mm,
And I was way wanting to produce way back when I was in my, my late 20s. But I never got there until just the last, I guess 1999 was my first real productions other than my own stuff. But I wanted to do an album of and feature my favorite guitar players besides Mick Taylor. I'd already done that, and I couldn't get him to come over and do anything else anyway. And he's already done his due with me. So we just picked the songs that we thought were appropriate for these players, and just that's the first half of the album is guitars, guitars, guitars. The second half of the album is the duets part, the
mhm,
singing duets,
mhm.
and songs that I have either written with somebody or songs that I've just loved the song and recorded. And then the third, which is the third of the vignette, as we would say in the business,
In the business, yeah.
in the business is
Business,
the
Texas.
business. Yeah,
Yeah.
the lost Gene Clark Carla Olson live concert from Nashville, the Nashville Summer Lights Festival in 1987.
Whoa. Yeah.
And that we didn't know that they had, that, I mean, we assumed it probably was recorded, but nobody had ever come forth and said, "Well, by the way, I've got this recording of that concert. Do you want to listen to it?" Until we'd already had this album was mastered. It was, the artwork was done, everything. That's why I sort of tagged onto the end there, because Saul had a thought that when the guy said, "Listen, I've got this recording, and some of it sounds really good, and some of it is a little bit, what I'd call a board tape. It's a little direct, but the three songs with just Gene and I playing acoustic guitar sounded really acceptably good, and so we wanted to let the fans have it if they didn't already find it bootlegged somewhere, and we threw it on there. And Saul aptly named it "Knights in Tarnished Armor." So that,
Ah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
that if you've got the artwork, which I think, I don't know if you got that or not.
I
Did
don't
you?
have that in front of me
I'll
now.
yeah, I'll make sure you get a physical copy too,
Oh,
because
that'd be great. That'd be great.
physical copies are really cool, I mean, because you can touch them, see it, and touch
Yeah.
it. You can open it, and
It,
it's a digipack. It doesn't have a broken crystal box, and you
if
know.
if we could just make the print larger, I would be
We
much
did,
happier.
we did. The print is really big. See how big the print is?
Then the packaging would be that thick.
No, we understand that our generation is losing its sight, and we have to accommodate. I mean, don't you like when they print the stuff and it's like, and it's usually artists that are like our age, they print it and it's like white print on gray background.
Yeah, yeah. And it's like you're
And he's a
crossing.
little bit, okay,
Yeah.
whatever. We're not going to do that to you. All of our
Thank you.
records, all of them have large print. This is the next album, Robert Rex Waller. See how big the print on the back is?
I think I can almost read that from here.
I
So,
know. There you go. Steve McCarthy, Carla Olson, you can read that, right?
yep, I sure can. That's about what it takes too, is
Like
that size.
Jake Andrews, you can read his too. This is what we believe in. And
That's
you gotta
right.
have the spine has to be correct, because when you put it in that way you can read the dang thing.
That's right. Yeah, I feel the struggle is real, as they say. So,
It is. It is real.
so which song off of, I'm counting it, 13 songs on this album.
Yeah.
Which one do you point to as the calling card for the rest of the disc?
Well, oddly enough, the first song that got played off this album is a what I call a nugget from the garage rock days. It's the band called the Zachary Thacks. They were from Corpus Christi, which is, about 100 miles from Austin.
Right.
But they used to come up and play in Austin all the time in the 60s, 1966, 67. And they opened for the Yardbirds, what I call a regional tour. And they were kind of into the Yardbirds at that point, which would have been, the what we call the rave up years, if you're familiar with the Yardbirds catalog. Yardbirds having a rave up. And every band in Austin, if you had want to do cover songs, that was one of the songs that you covered.
Mm.
And the song "Face to Face" is features my buddy Eric Johnson from high school. We went to high school together, and
I
Eric,
didn't realize that. I knew you guys were
yeah,
from
yeah,
Big City. I
we
love
met
Eric.
we met in biology class, and he was sitting behind me talking about he was going to go and record. So he would have been in the 10th grade. I was in the 12th grade, and it was we were going to a Catholic school
Mm.
because it was safer. If you had long hair, it was safer. And he was saying, "Yeah, I blew up my speaker cabinet. I blew up a couple speakers in my speaker cabinet, and I got a recording session tonight, and I need to find somebody that can loan me a speaker cabinet." And I just happen to have a big ass speaker cabinet. Excuse me, my French. I turned around and I said, "Well, what do you need? I have a cabinet with 10-inch speakers in it that I'm happy to loan you." And he went, "You have a cabinet with six tens in it?" And I went, "Yeah, I do." And he goes, "Can I come by after school?" And he's like, so he came by after school and we became friends, and we've been friends ever since.
I've
So
interviewed him a couple of times. He comes
yeah,
through here, East Tennessee, a couple of times, and
he was just there. He was just there in in September doing a clinic in Chattanooga.
oh, I didn't know that. I missed
Yeah,
that. I should have went down to
yes,
see him. I mean,
and played there too. He
I'll be
played there
darned.
too.
Where
Yeah.
was he at Songbirds? Did he go?
Yes, he was.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
makes sense. So,
No.
yeah, for some reason I didn't get that memo. But
Mm,
I love
yeah.
him. It's been a few years since I've talked to him, and he's changed publicists. A funny story about Eric. I don't want to get way off on this, but I first time I tried to interview him, I reached out to, I don't even remember the publicist's name,
Yeah.
and I asked if I could interview him. And the publicist was pretty rude. He was just like, "You're not big enough," and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, "Well, okay, And I didn't say anything. I didn't, I fought it, but I didn't say anything
Yeah.
smart alecky back. And almost exactly a year later, Carla, I'm having dinner with my folks at a restaurant here locally, and I feel my phone buzz, and I look at it. It's an email from Steve Karras. And he goes, "Hey, by the way, would you be interested in interviewing Eric Johnson?" I was like, I just laughed. It was just like
Yeah.
exactly a year later, different publicist,
Yeah.
and they come to me. And then, there was a couple of times I interviewed. I love Eric, love his work, he's a great performer. And I think the world of him. But he's changed
Yeah.
publicists, and I haven't been able to get through to him again. So I need to
Well,
take
you ever
that.
need to get a hold of him, and you just let me know because I let's just put it this way, we're hooked up. So,
All right, good deal. I'll take you up on that. I promise
Yeah.
you that. So,
Yeah.
but I
Yeah.
want to go back off of this album for a minute and kind of go back to one we talked about the last time and get your thoughts. And that was on the your Gordon Lightfoot album. And sadly,
Ah, yeah.
sadly, we lost Gordon since then. Yep.
No.
And you know what? You can't see it, but you were kind enough to send me your vinyl version of your album that you did with Mick. And I have it right beside my autographed copy of Gordon Lightfoot's Gold album. And so I
Gold.
purposely put it
Gordon's
there.
gold. Yeah.
Yeah. And I did that on purpose because at the time I hung these up, you had just come out with that album. And even though I didn't have the vinyl of your Gordon Lightfoot album, I wanted symbolically to have that connection there so that when I mean, nobody comes in here except me, and so I'm
Yeah.
just, it's for my purposes, but I just want to let you know that I have your Sway album that you signed for me very graciously right next to the album that Gordon signed for me a couple years before he died.
Is that the red vinyl?
The
red vinyl one?
I think so, because it's,
Okay.
yeah, because whichever one you sent me, I didn't even take the vinyl out. I just kept it, and I got it framed and hanging up. So
Mine's sitting on the piano. Mine's sitting on the piano because our stylus doesn't work. So,
but I wanted to get your thoughts about Gordon now that he's passed, and you had come out with the album before he did. Give me your thoughts about the man.
Every time he came to LA, we went to see him. and I don't think we missed a show. And even though after his unfortunate aneurysm that he had back in the, oh God, 90s, I guess it was, and he lost a lot of his voice because of the tube they put down his throat. It was wrecked his vocal cords. But the man was absolutely a troubadour. He was made to stand there alone with an acoustic guitar and delight us all. And that's
Mhm.
what he did.
Mm.
And every time he came to town, we would try to at least go back and say hi, because there was never a green room for him. And nobody was like hanging out going, oh, geez, I want to. It was, especially the later days. I mean, every show was packed. Everyone was what I would call, okay, everybody's going, yeah, Gordon can't sing that great anymore, but you know what? It doesn't matter. We're here to support him. He's the best, one of the best writers that anybody's ever, I mean, you've ever known. I mean, I remember I sent this album, the CD that I did, the Ladies Sing Lightfoot. I sent a copy of that to Chris Hillman because, at the point I was just sort of feeling for where we were on it. And I got a nice note back from Chris confidentially to the whole world. He said, man, Carla, you knocked it out of the park on this. He said, this is a beautiful record.
Mhm.
And he said, not only is it a beautiful record, but it turned me on to Gordon as a songwriter, as to how many hit songs he wrote. And I
Mhm.
said, well, doesn't even touch it. I mean, this is just like,
That's right.
you know, this is just a smattering of the, I mean, I couldn't cover them all. I couldn't
Right.
do it all. And the songs that I chose weren't necessarily absolutely my favorite songs, but I thought they were appropriate for women to sing.
Mhm. Mhm.
I thought it would be an interesting concept. So um, Gordon will never be gone. Gordon will always be here, and he'll always be in our hearts and our minds and our ears. And as Bob Dylan would say, when I hear Gordon Lightfoot, I hope it goes on forever, because I wish I could be the writer that Gordon Lightfoot is.
Yeah.
That was Bob Dylan said that about him.
That's
Yeah.
huge. That's
That's
huge.
huge.
Yeah.
Exactly. So that's my thoughts on it. Yeah.
Well, I interviewed him. I guess it was early, or probably early 2019.
Hmm.
He invited me. He was going to be doing a show in Chattanooga, and it got postponed. I think he fell and hurt his leg or something, if I
He
recall.
hurt his wrist.
His wrist. Okay, so
It wasn't his left wrist though. I believe it was his right wrist. So he was still able to kind of play a little bit, but he didn't want to, he didn't want to offend by
yeah,
going out
right.
being not being, totally there. So yeah.
But my interview with him was so cool, and he was so gracious. I got him to talk about Elvis a little bit and how
Oh
his
yeah.
excitement when Elvis did Early Morning
I
Rain.
know, and that's funny because I do that song. Well, I used to do it before COVID. We every year, somebody in LA, a wonderful promoter, would put together Elvis birthday bash, and I would always horn my way in there. Say, I can't do, I want to do Early Morning Rain, and I would always sign up for it like in July or something, and say, okay, January, I want to do Early Morning Rain, and I did that with a band, full band, with the Ronnie Mack's barn dance players, which is
Oh, wow.
Skip and Skip Edwards and Dave Raven playing drums, and Marty Ripken on steel, and Paul Marshall, same bass player. Paul's on a lot of this album.
Yep.
They would let me come in and sing Early Morning Rain because Elvis did it. So I got to, and it was, and obviously Elvis doing your song. Can you imagine how impactful that was? But Gordon Lightfoot said it. I mean, he's like Gordon Lightfoot. He's like, okay, yeah, that was his what I would call shining moment in life, is when Elvis did it, or when Dylan said that. I mean,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
just, he was
I
uncompromisingly talented.
He really was. I hated, I mean, you could tell he was tired when I saw him. I mean, he was around the same age as my dad. So, and my dad's skinny like Gordon was, and
Mhm.
I thought, wow, I mean, my dad's in excellent health, and And I
Yeah.
think, gosh, the wearing, and you know how it is touring. I mean, it's hard on everybody, no matter the age. And I thought, here he is putting it out there. But I'll tell you a true story, and I doubt this person will be listening to that because we broke up since then. But I was dating someone in the Chattanooga area at the time.
Mhm.
And Gordon had said during the interview, "Hey, I want to meet you, and I'd like for you to come backstage." I said, "Oh, you twist my arm, you know." So we go to the show. The show had been postponed a couple times. We finally get to see him just before the lockdown. And I have my albums. I had an album for me and an album for a good friend of mine who is a huge Lightfoot fan and from Canada as well. And so I go up to the road manager after the show and say, "Hey, blah, blah, blah," told him the whole thing. He goes, "Well," he
Mhm.
goes,
Yeah.
"Gordon's really tired. He's not going to be able to see anybody, but I'll be happy to take your records back and get him to sign them." So I said, "Okay, cool." Well, we were waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting and
Yeah.
waiting. It was a long time.
And it was cold, I bet.
Well, yeah, it was, but we were
Yeah.
inside the Tivoli there
Yeah.
in Chattanooga. And
Yeah.
finally, my then girlfriend gets up, storms over to the manager and goes, "Can you tell me what's taking so long?" That was the beginning of the end of that relationship. You don't jerk with my artist, okay? So
Well, when he played the Saban Theater along about that time, and Saul and I went to the show, and a couple shows before that we had gone, and the only people in the green room were the Goods. If you
Mhm.
know who the Goods are,
I've heard of them, yeah.
okay, the Sadie's parents,
Ah,
the band the Sadie's,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Travis, who passed away, and Austin Good.
Mhm.
That was their parents, and they were childhood friends of Gordon's,
Ah,
and they were there along with Joe Wizard, who produced Summer Side of Life
mhm, mhm.
and the album. And we knew Joe, and we were hanging out. And this is the time before, a couple times before. I think it was 2018. We were there, and we were hanging out with just the five of us in the in the dressing room, and Gordon is just chatting away to everybody. The next time we saw him, he was not doing as good because he was getting older and tireder.
Yeah.
But every time it was just unbelievable how much he put into his playing never suffered.
No,
As
never.
a picker and a play, never. And his 1, 2, 3, 2, what is the way he'd count the songs off. It was always so Gordon, you
Yeah.
didn't, there was
And that
never
band
even
was amazing too.
the band was amazing, and they never overplayed. It
Mm-mm.
was always about Gordon and the
Mhm,
song. And
mhm.
those shows
They
were
honored him,
wonderful.
and that
Perfect.
it
Yeah,
showed. The
they
honor
they
towards
did.
him during the show from that band
Yeah,
it spoke volumes. It
yeah,
really
yeah,
but gosh, I miss him. And it just knowing that he's gone kind of hurts. But then you have that music, you have that documentary, and we talked
right.
about it. And in fact, we were talking about it before it was available here in the States. And so when it finally came out stateside, I watched it. I want to watch it again. It's very, very good. And I,
Did you do the COVID pay for review on the line in December when he was at Massey Hall?
mm-mm,
And it was
what's that?
December, it had to be 2021 because that was the first year of COVID. And he played and they filmed it, and you could sign on, I think it was $20 or something like that to watch it in real time.
Oh,
And he took a break halfway through, and his daughter came on from the dressing room, and she was playing songs in the dressing room. And that was the halftime for the people that were, if you can get it on, see if you can find it on YouTube. It was done at Massey Hall when they redid Massey Hall and they reopened it. Remember, they had to
yeah,
redo it in
yeah,
Toronto because it was falling apart.
falling apart. Yeah,
And he was there for the reopening of it. And
very cool.
it was very, his voice was weak, but who cares? I mean,
Yeah,
he was there.
it was Gordon.
And
That's
it
it.
was Gordon, and it was all 100%, as much as he could give you.
Yeah.
So,
The
yeah.
only online streaming I saw during the pandemic was Toto was doing one when they got their new band configuration, which is amazing.
Yeah.
And then Bonamassa was doing one at the Ryman, and I paid the extra money to have a cutout of me in one of the seats. And you
Yeah.
pay this extra money,
Yeah.
And what was wild about both of them, you hear these big crashing ends of songs
Right.
and then crickets. You know,
Yeah.
it's just
Yeah.
like that had to be tough on artists, you know, to
Yeah, but everybody was trying to find a venue. I remember doing backyard concerts with my buddy Todd Wolf, and
Mhm.
we couldn't get even close enough to the people that were filming it. We had to be 20 feet away from them because no one knew at that point how much this would spread and how quickly it would spread. And we were doing, backyard little concerts for people. We did an online from a club in Pennsylvania that we you paid what you wanted to pay, and people would pay us like $50. I'm going, $50 to listen to an album's worth of me and Todd in the living room in here. You guys are nuts. Geez, but we love you. We love you. So yeah, well, yeah, we've had an interesting few years. Interesting
Now,
few years.
hopefully we're really through it, and I think we are, unless
Yeah,
something
yeah.
decides to pop. If it pops again in 24, I'm gonna be really mad and curious about that, but,
Well, and I once again, I found at the time that we all procrastinate, everybody procrastinates, and I'm the worst about writing. I don't get down and write as much as I need to write because I'm always finding something else I want to do or do with other people, and
mm,
my own material suffers. But during COVID, I wrote 8 songs with Pete Brown.
wow,
And Pete Brown wrote "Sunshine of Your Love," "White Room,"
right,
"Politician." He
right.
wrote uh, uh, Imaginary Westerns,
Western, yeah,
yeah, with
I'm a
but
man
Jack Bruce, he wrote all that stuff,
mountain,
and he
all
was a
that, yeah.
writer. He was a lyricist, and his partner died of cancer somewhere around, I think, maybe 2017, 2000, something like 18, and, I heard him on Paul Jones's, BBC radio show saying that, "Yeah, I'm brokenhearted because my partner that I wrote with passed away, and I don't really have anybody that writes music." I got in touch with him, and I said, "Send me some lyrics. I'm happy to give it a go." He sent me 8 sets of lyrics. I have 1 left. He passed away in May.
Yeah,
He didn't pass away from COVID, he had cancer.
right,
His record of songs has 1 song that I wrote with him, that, I got to sing on, and
mhm,
that's coming out in January. It's an album called The Shadow Club, and it's Pete Brown with Bonamassa, Eric Clapton, Clem Clemson,
mm,
Arthur Brown, Crazy Arthur Brown.
mhm,
I think, I mean, there's like all these guests that are playing on it because they knew Pete was not well, but they're all new original songs of his.
wow,
And so I just went, okay, well, I'm sitting here, I'm locked down. I can't even go to the grocery store. And I just started writing with him and sending it via cell phone and this laptop that we're talking on right now. And we would write back and forth. And my buddy from the Textones, Joe Reed, the bass player, I
mhm,
would send, he was locked down in London. I would send him the track that I had that I was playing to with a vocal. He would make drums, organ, bass, send it back to me. I'd sing on it. We'd send it to Pete and say, "Is it a go? Does it sound okay?" And he would, say, "Yeah," or maybe I should add a verse. We did that during COVID. It would
uh,
never have gotten done now. It
yeah,
would never have gotten done before then.
right,
So at the time, yeah, we did lose a lot of life. We lost a lot of people, but a lot of us got this up off the mat and just thought, yeah, hey, screw this. I'm getting this done,
let's get her done.
because we may not be here tomorrow. Why not?
That's right. I don't know if
So,
Saul saw this. I posted it on Facebook. I don't know if he saw it and would have told you about it. Did you never believe who I interviewed? I think it was last week. It'll be a couple weeks before it posts. Was Jack Bruce's son, Malcolm.
oh, Mal plays
Yeah.
bass on the whole album.
Oh,
He
yeah.
plays bass on this whole album with
Okay.
Pete
There you
Brown.
go. There you
There
go.
you go.
Well, he's got the acoustic project coming. I think it's out now. It may be out or about to come out called Heavenly. I mean, the band's called Heavenly Cream, and it's an
Oh,
acoustic
Heavenly
tribute.
Cream. Yeah, I did see that.
Yeah.
That's on the
So
same label. It's on this label Flatiron
right.
that's out of England. And that's the label that was this actually, the Pete Brown was supposed to come out October the 6th, but they had some sort of paperwork snafu. It's not going to come out till January.
Yeah.
Yeah, Mal's on bass. I forgot to mention that Mal's on bass on this Pete Brown album.
I was
So
surprised. His publicist is a good friend of mine, and he asked me, he goes, "Hey, you want to talk to us?" But yeah, I'll love to talk to him. And I figured he'd maybe give me 15, 20 minutes of his time. And we did, I think, close to an hour, maybe a little over
yeah,
an hour, just talking. And what a fascinating guy he is.
yeah,
Stories and all that kind of stuff. We had a blast talk. I did.
yeah.
At least. I hope
And Janet, his mom, and I got to be uh, uh, friends on Instagram because we had, she saw some of my posts and stuff with Mick Taylor, and she, just liked it. And I just felt I never really knew her or knew anything. I didn't really ever meet Pete in person, but we got to be, we've gotten kind of
good
visiting
virtual
on
friends.
Instagram. Yeah,
Yeah.
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 So, and that's really a wonderful thing because as much as I don't badmouth the social media, but I try not to be a slave to it, except that it is really the musician's friend. You
It,
really have to get your stuff out there, and especially if you're not on a label that's going to hire a publicist or anything like that.
right.
I've got a couple people that are helping me now because we've had some family illnesses in the last 6 months or so that have kind of slowed me and Saul down. But usually we're burning the midnight oil trying to get, promote our own stuff.
Right.
And but I will have to. I'm going to go back in and look at Flatiron. So they put up a little promo on that Mal Bruce album. I'm going to look at it a little
Well,
closer.
I've heard the whole thing, and it's amazing. It really is. But it's interesting how I mean, these people. I just get to talk to them every once in a while, but it's fun to be able to say, "Oh yeah, we talked to that person," and be able
Well,
to exchange stories about it.
I got to tell Janet that I mean, not that it's anything unusual, but I went with Don Henley to see Cream in Dallas, October the I want to say 26th, 1968. We went
Yeah,
to the
he's from
show.
around there. Yeah,
Huh?
I said Don's from around there. I believe
Well,
it.
we were
But he lives
friends.
there.
His band used to come down to Austin and play frat parties and clubs, and that's how I knew him.
Mhm.
But he dated my sister for a little while, my older sister, and they're the same age. And we were pals. And he says I've got tickets to see Cream with Terry Reid opening, of course,
Whoa.
and it was amazing. And
Where'd you see him at in Dallas? Which venue?
we saw him at a place. It's it's like the uh would be this equivalent of a civic auditorium.
Okay.
It's probably maybe 6,000 seater, something like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and we had nosebleed seats. It didn't matter because I mean, come on, they were as loud as all get out, and
That's
they
right.
did both Train Time and Toad in that set.
Wow.
I
Wow.
mean, we're talking Cream here, okay? But
All right.
I'm just saying that I was when every time that Janet, his Jack's wife, would post something about the whatever gig or something like that, and I'm just like, yeah, I can't believe, I was there, I was at this gig, and it was like it made a huge impact on me. I was 16 years old,
Mhm,
you
mhm.
know. It was a huge impact. So,
Well, what do you
those are the days.
yes, they were. What do you have planned to support this great album? Are you gonna do any gigs? You gonna tour at all? What's on the agenda?
Touring's kind of impossible at the age of 71 and, with uh no band right now. I mean, everybody's on the road. All these musicians that have work out there don't ever bitch and moan about the dressing room or the back line because you're out there doing it.
Mhm,
But I've got a gig coming up with Robert Rex Waller that I produced his album.
mhm.
Uh, that's coming. We came out the same day that my album came out. Is his album called "See the Big Man Cry"?
Yep, yep.
Okay, and same band member, same Icy Hawks guys, and Skip Edwards on keyboard and Ben LaCourt on drums. And we're going to do a dual record release party at McCabe's, which is an acoustic venue here in Los Angeles, on the 9th of December. And after that, I'm going to try really, really hard to get out and do some key dates. But traveling is really hard, at this age. It's to get on a plane and carry guitars and all that stuff. It's really hard, really
And
hard.
risky because
You don't
people,
want to get sick. No, you
yeah,
don't want to get sick.
you
Exactly.
don't want to get sick. You don't want your gear to get misplaced either.
Well, yeah, I don't take my Gene Clark Carla Olson acoustic guitar on the road with me. That one stays in the room in here.
Yeah,
I'll take a traveling guitar, if I'm gonna do that stuff. But
that's right. Well,
yeah,
if you ever
I'd love
make
to
it,
go out and play.
I'd love to see you come out this way. I don't know. I don't have any plans on heading out towards California anytime soon, but when I do, and if I'm going to be within spitting distance of you guys, I'm definitely giving you a holler. We're going to get together and visit and
Well, and if I'm
drink and
doing
be merry.
something, you'll be the first to hear about it, because we do this. The only real way to advertise stuff nowadays is to put it on your Facebook page and your Instagram page, and
And I'll
there's
share it
another
and
couple
talk
of
it up.
things that I don't know about, but
Mm,
I really try to let people know in a universal way that, if we're coming their way. I'm going to try to get back out, at least get over to Europe once. I was scheduled to do 6 shows in Scandinavia with my buddy Stephen McCarthy from the Long Riders, but I had a problem with my eye. I have a retina that's kind of not burst, but it's not happy right now, and I'm waiting for it to heal. I was supposed to get surgery on it a couple of weeks ago, and now they're going to wait until after the 1st of January. You can't fly if you've had that done. You can't
right,
fly
right,
for
because of the
about 6
pressure.
weeks.
Yeah,
Yeah, so we had to cancel those shows, which broke my heart, because all my relatives live in Sweden. I've got my dad's family's all from there. So,
yeah.
my cousins all live there, and a lot of my real good friends. I used to go over to Sweden 2 or 3 times, a year, and do shows and stuff. So, that's kind of was my mom used to say, "Go where you're wanted, kid," and that's where I went. So,
That's right. But if you even get towards, say, Atlanta, Nashville, especially Nashville or Chattanooga, Chat's only a couple hours away from me, and I'm down there all the time, and I go to Nashville as often as I can. But so if you're not in the Knoxville area, which is near where I live, then we'll definitely hook up, because I want to meet you and Saul in person and hug your
Okay.
all's necks after these few years we've known each other.
We were gonna do a show, a PBS show that is in West Virginia, and we were gonna try to do it in August, and then, like I said, we had some family illness, and it kept us from trying to get out and go to do this show. But I'm trying to remember what the name of that one was. It was Western something or another. Anyway, it's an hour-long songwriters show that's on PBS, and Stephen McCarthy and I were going to go do it, but it's very hard to get to Charleston, West Virginia,
Hmm. Hmm.
by plane from LA. It's about a 3-plane change, so
Yeah.
it's just
You
hard
almost
to,
need either that, or you need to drop down in like a Asheville or Knoxville, or someplace
yeah,
like that, and do an hour or two drive or something. Yeah.
yeah. It's just hard to put it all together. But we're gonna. I mean, I'm not saying I'll never get on the road. I love to get out on the road. I love playing live. I love producing, but I'm kind of, I need to take a break from the headphones for a while,
Hmm.
and do some of my other stuff. I also produced this album, Jake Andrews. His dad was in Mother Earth,
Hmm.
Tracy Nelson's band. He
Hmm.
was his dad's John Toad Andrews,
Oh,
who
okay.
was,
Yeah.
yeah, Toad.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Toad was one of the first original guys that played with his teeth, He played guitar with his teeth.
Before Hendrix.
Uh, uh, Along about they played with Hendrix a lot. They did shows with Jimi Hendrix.
I'll be.
Tracy Nelson's Mother Earth did, and Boz Scaggs was in the band with him. They used to have
Oh,
he had a band with Boz Scaggs called Wig, in Texas. And Jake is on Street Fighting Man. He's the guitar player on
I'll
this
be
that plays
darned.
lead. So if you guys want to pick up a hot instrumental rock and roll album of guitar, 3-piece guitar and keyboard, cut live in the studio, this is a real hot record. And right now, Jake is what I would say, discovered him, not I discovered him, but I discovered him myself when he was 15, and he was coming out to LA to play BB King's Blues Club when Saul was booking the talent out there. And he's an amazing guitar player, very amazing guitar player.
Well, I want
So-
to thank you, and then we'll pause, and then I want to talk to you about something offline so Mike can have an easy time editing it out.
Editing. Okay. Tell Mike.
I'm letting the crowd know that ahead of you. So,
Sorry, Mike, we digress.
that's right. And Mike's a great musician. You should hear him play. He's a great he's a multi-instrumentalist, but he's a great keyboard player, and he edits my stuff for me, and he's a wonderful friend too. But
Wow.
anyway,
Don't you love
Mike,
those
I
people?
plugged you. You heard it here. But Carla, I want to thank you for taking the time, and we got to gossip some and have fun talking about music and all that kind of
My
stuff.
pleasure.
You know that my door is always open to you and Saul for whatever it is you got going on. Just don't be bashful. Ask me, say, hey, Randy, we need to get on the hook here and let's talk about something, and we'll do it. I guarantee it. We'll make it happen every time. So thank you for everything. And let's wait a second here, and then I'll tell you what's going on. So, okay.
Okay, Randy, thank you so very, very much.